the leaked Pentagon documents. Shall we begin? What are the major takeaways? So this is a piece from Al Jazeera. I thought it was actually well put together, honestly, because there's so much about this, and you might get lost because you'll see like really grainy photos of these documents. I've been going through them one by one. They're really not that special. There's nothing special in here. Wow. Israel is selling some weapons to Morocco. Who gives a crap? We know they're working with Morocco. By the way, this stuff is like at least a month old. These documents are at least 1 month old. So I know Ukraine have come out and said that they've been forced to change their battle plans and this spring offensive that's supposed to happen. I mean, we're almost summer, but okay. Yeah. The Pentagon has confirmed that the military documents appear to contain sensitive and highly classified material. Again, word to the wise, when the Americans say highly classified, they classify literally everything. Maybe someone went to McDonald's and they would classify that too. I'm not even kidding. Nevertheless, the Pentagon has skirted categorical claims over the authenticity of the documents, right? So this is the big question, because there's one section inside of the documents that people have been photoshopping, and it's about losses in Ukraine, right? I'm curious, you're curious, everyone would like to know, what's the Pentagon think? What are their estimates? People are making it seem that the Russian losses are higher, and others are making it seem like the Ukrainian losses are higher. Now, from what I can gather, the Guardian make mention of this, right? They say two versions of those documents, one of which had been crudely digitally altered to understate Russian casualties and overstate Ukrainian ones, were passed around among observers of the war. According to the Guardian, they think the version where Russian losses are higher is the correct version. You can see one of these has been photoshopped, right? So they're saying that this one on the left is actually the real one. Let's zoom in, and I know, again, this is grainy and annoying, but forgive me, it's the one on see, we're already getting our goddamn things mixed up. Basically, let me just read this to you. The Pentagon estimates that the Russians have lost, what is it, around 60,000 troops. That's quite a lot. So they call them KIA, killed in action. So they say there are between 35 to 60,000 Russian killed. I mean, that's quite broad, but nevertheless. And then 72 fighters / bombers, 82 rotary wing, so that's helicopters, planes, bombers, and helicopters, respectively, and then 6,000 ground vehicles. And for Ukraine, the Pentagon estimates there are 16 to 17,000 KIA killed in action. So you can see here that the Russian losses are significantly higher, right? Now, you could interpret this in multiple ways. You could say that, well, the Russians are losing. If that's your metric of winning and losing, then yes, the Russians are losing. They're certainly losing more men, according to the Pentagon. Someone, especially on the Russian side, might look at this and say, no. This is just proof that Russia is able to sustain more casualties, to take a more punches and still remain in the fight. Both of those assessments, wouldn't be wrong. In any case, I'm just telling you, I'm just trying to clear up this issue about which one of these is doctored, which one of these has been photoshopped, because it's been quite an issue online, and reasonably so. But the Guardian and most of these mainstream outlets are saying that no, if you see these documents online, the one where the Russian losses are higher, that is the legitimate one. I mean, again, make of that what you will. I'm just telling you what's happening, okay? Oh, you'll get my opinion in a second. The British MOD, the Ministry of Defense, they said that you should not take these supposed or purported US leaks at face value. And the reason they say that is because, according to these documents, more than half of the foreign special forces in Ukraine are British. Again, I wouldn't be surprised either way. What difference does it make? We know that just like in Syria and everywhere else, you're going to have SAS and you're going to have American Special Forces. Does the number really matter? Latvia, they're saying here, has 17 personnel. 17. And that's the second highest number, apparently, out of all NATO countries. France is 14. The US and France have 14 and 15 special forces, respectively. So there you go. And Netherlands, 0. Now let's go to South Korea. This has caused a big stink in South Korea, these leaks, because to cut the story short, the documents show that the Americans are spying on their allies, South Korea. Wow. Do you really need classified documents to fucking figure that one out? Of course, they're spying on South Korea. And so the South Koreans, I don't know if this is, a typical behavior of a U.S. puppet. It's to just immediately come out and say, no, we are not being spied on. We swear it. But, that's what they did. Here's a video.
정보기관이 불법 스파이 활동을 우리나라와 같은 동맹국을 대상으로 자행해 온 것에 대해 깊은 유감을 표합니다. 명백한 진상 확인과 더불어 다시는 이런 일이 없도록 할 것을 강하게 촉구합니다. 미국 최고의 정보기관이
Just to put that into perspective, when it comes to Germany, Angela Merkel, she had her personal phone spied on, and Germany, I think is it depends which way you look at it. I was going to say Germany are a much more important ally than South Korea, but once again, depends it depends on your perspective. That was a big, a much bigger stink than this, and still nothing happened. So you shouldn't be surprised that the United States spy on their allies. To be frank, everyone spies on their allies. Everyone. This is not an American thing. They didn't invent it. Before there was any United States on the face of the earth, people were spying on their allies. It's just how things work, unfortunately. There's also a section about the United States spying on Zelensky. Well, man, if I give somebody $80 billion, I'm definitely going to spy on them. I mean, that's just my thing. But no, the funny thing is that the Americans don't want any oversight where that money's going. That's the irony. But yeah, they're spying on Zelensky. So what? I think he knows that. He's not stupid. Serbia agreeing to arm Ukraine. Now Serbia's coming out saying that that's not true, right? There was also a section here about Egypt. So one leaked document, which is dated February 17th, and I'm saying by the Washington Post, claimed that Egypt planned to supply Russia with rockets and munitions. So this is interesting because, Egypt, they have a stockpile of really old munitions. Now, that is what Russia needs at the moment. These are the kinds of munitions that North Korea would have been supplying them with, were that to be the case or not. But when it comes to Egypt, everyone is saying this is fake. The Russians are saying that it's not true. The Americans are saying it's not true, and Egypt are saying it's not true. Sisi, the Egyptian president, in this document, he's basically telling them to keep the production secret and avoid problems with the West and blah blah blah. I mean, why would he say that if this is true? It's because Egypt receives a ton of aid from the United States. Basically they got Egypt cornered. Egypt has the largest out of all the Arab countries. Egypt is the most populated. Or populous. You have a lot of mouths to feed, right? So Egypt depends on this aid from the United States to feed its population. That's among other reasons why Egypt has no choice but to maintain ties with Israel. And this is why if they were supplying the Russians, they would definitely have to keep that secret. But everybody is saying it's not true. Oh, actually, they say here, by the way, the military. Egypt is one of the world's top recipients of U.S. military aid, receiving $1.3 billion in military financing annually. But what I was talking about was, again, not military aid. I meant to in general, right? So I was just thinking of hypotheticals. Let's say, it could be true. It could still be true, this Washington Post story. But for it to be true, the Russians would have to be lying, as would the Egyptians, and trying to say, no, this is garbage. We have no agreement with each other, and the Americans would have to genuinely believe that Egypt is not supplying the Russians, or have no evidence to support it. then in that case, yes, it would be true. But do you really think the Americans wouldn't know if, whether Egypt was giving artillery rounds to the Russians? Of course they would fucking know. It's a very narrow hypothetical situation. So if you ask me, I think it's bullshit. I could be wrong, but if everybody's saying it's wrong, it's probably wrong. They say that these documents suggest the U.S. has penetrated the Russian military. No, actually, it's not true. Not Russian military only. The military intelligence is very specific. So and much more damning, right? And the Wagner Group. So that if these documents are true, that's what they say about the Mossad. So they say also in these documents that the Israeli intelligence service, the Mossad, are supporting these government protests against Netanyahu, right? So I told you just a bit earlier that these are a big headache for Netanyahu. You got people coming out every week doing these huge protests against him. I mean, the response from his office immediately was to say that this is bullshit. Obviously, he's going to say that because it's embarrassing. He's not going to come out and say, yes, this is true. My own intelligence service, which, remember, as prime minister in Israel, when the Mossad want to assassinate someone, the prime minister is the one who signs off on it. Okay, so he is in direct control of the intelligence agency. Okay, he would have to basically be admitting that he has no control over it. I don't know what to make of that story. I'm sure you have people in the Mossad who actually support the protests and others who don't. The the way that you should really look at it is that even if you got rid of Ben Gvir and Netanyahu tomorrow morning, Israel is still an occupying force. It doesn't matter how left you make it, right? A leftist Zionist is still a fucking Zionist. And that land is Palestinian and Syrian, whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter how left or vegan or goddamn, progressive you are as an Israeli. If you're on Palestinian or Syrian land, you're on Palestinian and Syrian land. There's no way around it. Was there anything else? Yeah, this is kind of funny. The origin of these documents. So where did they appear? I'm sure I'm glad you asked. I thought you were never going to. These documents, as far as we know, appeared on Discord. Now, for those of you who know what Discord is, this is kind of funny. But Discord is basically a chat that's used mainly by gamers, right? It's actually very good for gaming and so on. It's well integrated. So the idea that you would have Pentagon documents on a gaming, social media platform is kind of, it's ridiculous, right? I'm not saying it's not true. It's just really funny. It's just other people are saying now that actually it was on a Minecraft server, which makes it even more funny. Which again, for those of you who don't know, Minecraft is a game. So people come on, man. I really don't know. But they're quite angry about them, and it's so weird because you have got all these countries rushing to say none of this is true, but maybe some of it's true, and everyone's just kind of looking at this and saying, what the fuck is wrong with you people? It's really funny. It's so funny. They want these documents to be true and not true at the same time, and you have people photoshopping them also, so you have three different stories. It's really it's a laughing stock, honestly. So the U.S. Justice Department have opened a criminal investigation into how the slides were obtained and leaked. The CIA director has called the leak deeply unfortunate. So this is after his visit to Saudi Arabia to complain about, about them making peace with Syria. How dare you? Here's John Kirby. Enjoy.
Again, without confirming the validity of the documents, this is information that has no business in the public domain. It has no business, if you don't mind me saying, on the pages of front pages of newspapers or.
But why not? Okay, of course I'm gonna bust your balls, John. Just trying to do my job as well. But I really like this guy. He's such a office character, right? It's like he's straight out of The Office. It's like, how could this guy be the Pentagon spokesperson? He's just a cartoon character. So I'm really laying into him now. No, but listen, why doesn't it have any business in the public domain, John? Is it true or not? We keep hearing how fake these documents are and then not really. And which one is it? Are you spying on Zelensky in South Korea? I know you are, or not? Now, are the Egyptians giving the Russians weapons? That's one. That one I'd really like to know because everyone's denying it. And now the cynics are going, that's why it's true, because everyone denied it. It must be true. No, I really want to know how Sisi would get away with giving the Russians weapons in a war where Russia, in a war where you have NATO fighting Russia without the Americans finding out. I mean, he must be a real moron to do that if it's true.
Again, without confirming the validity of the documents, this is information that has no business in the public domain.
Okay, so it's true. Because if it were fake, then you wouldn't care if it's in the public domain. I don't know. I'm trying to work out what is going through his mind.
It has no business, if you don't mind me saying, on the pages of front pages of newspapers or on television.
What about Discord then? I got you there. What about Discord or a Minecraft server? You didn't say that.
It's not intended for public consumption, and it should not be out there.
Okay, now I really have to stop you there, because he's saying it's not intended for public consumption. Jesus Christ, I've never seen in my entire life a government document that actually looks like it was intended for public consumption. I mean, just look at this thing. It's literally made, it's like a fucking brochure. Would you like an F-16 jet from Turkey? Well, look at this thing. Every single one of them. It really, really definitely looks like it was intended for public consumption. Every other government document I've seen is like some boring black and white bullshit typed out in Microsoft Word and printed out and stamped with a million things. This one has graphics and colors and it's got logos and shit. This really looks like it was made for public consumption. I'm obviously playing. I'm playing. Right now. But if you look at the top, it says top secret. And they've also got some other it's an alphabet soup at the top. It's a complete alphabet soup. All of these things mean different. For example, NOFORN. That means no foreign national. So if you're for example a British intelligence official, you're not allowed to see this document. This is only for US intelligence. Actually, does it say Five Eyes somewhere? No, it doesn't. Yeah. FISA is for the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, so that's a separate thing as well. So basically, a real alphabet soup. And it's boring and ugly, and this is how most government documents look. But the rest of it, I mean, wow. Whoever made this was sitting there, in Photoshop going, I'm a boss right now. Going back to the Al Jazeera thing, or actually we finished it. There's nothing left to talk about. But Judge Napolitano, let's see what they had to say.
The hope in the release of these documents is that two things. One is that it would give an off-ramp, that people would say, well, look, clearly, I mean, all our information is now in public domain. It's not possible to go ahead. Maybe we need to delay it and push it back, and then eventually sort of fade out and let it sort of die its own death. But I think the other expectation in
die its own death. What an amazing phrase.
These documents was there is a lot of divisions in NATO, particularly the uniform branches of the military, not the bureaucrats and the people who sit on these committees in NATO's, but the uniforms in Germany and France and elsewhere have deep reservations about the merits of having an offensive. They don't think Ukraine is going to be able to launch it, doesn't have the manpower, doesn't have the resources, and if they do, it's going to be a disaster. And so I think they hope that by putting it out like this, it's going to be able to allow critics who have felt unable to say these things, controversial.
Right, so he makes a very important point, which is that people have looked at these documents and said, well, Ukraine's air defenses are on the verge of collapse. Ukraine just cannot handle a spring offensive right now. They're just not in any shape. First of all, you should take the losses into maybe let's get the issue with the losses straightened out so we know who's lost how many people and bombers and so on. And this whole thing could be a psyop. It could maybe be what he suggested now, that they're intentionally releasing this to deter Ukraine from going through this this spring offensive, or for critics of that spring offensive to permit them to be more vocal, whether it's outside or inside NATO. Who the hell knows, man? They say the widely reported leak of alleged classified US information has demonstrated a serious level of inaccuracy. Readers should be cautious about taking at face value allegations that have the potential to spread disinformation. I mean, that's just as vague as it comes, right? But again, you have no clue what part of the leaks they mean. What is the British MOD saying here? Are they saying that the numbers regarding the KIA are inaccurate? Is it the number of British special forces? The fact that the Americans are spying on Zelensky? I mean, this could fucking mean anything. You know, it's this typical spook bullshit. They speak in like 15 tongues at once, you know, goddamn demons. No, but seriously, it's just so weird, this entire story. I personally think that number one, we know it's outdated because these things were appearing on Discord like a month ago. So even if they were actual last month, they don't matter anymore. They're real enough that Ukraine has come out and said, well, we've had to change our battle plans. Now that could also be disinformation for the Russians, basically making the Russians think that they're going to act differently than what's in the documents. When you start going down this rabbit hole of you know, war propaganda and spook shit, there's like, you know, 15 million levels of it. This person could be lying to trick that person who's lying to trick this person. You will go literally insane. You will go nuts. So let's leave it at that. I've given you all the information that we have, and we can all go insane on our own time and die our own death. As that guy said, what a phrase. Oh, Christ. All in all, if I had to rate this, you know, like being a journalist and all, this is the worst dump of classified documents I've ever seen. Completely disorganized. Nobody knows what's what. Just, you know, 0 out of 0. Okay.